Good morning, viewers and listeners of Concerned Citizens Media. Welcome back and nice to have you here. I just came to share some news for today. I don't have much to read, just a little bit. Then I have only one video for today. Is about Guantanamo Bay. This is a prison set up in Cuba by the United States to hold terrorists from different countries. So I have the video on that one. If you remember, since 2001, when the World Trade Center was attacked, America declared war, the war on terrorism. That project created a lot of problems for Muslims. Many innocent Muslims impacted by that operation in Guantanamo Bay and in different areas. So I have one video discussing what can be learned from that operation and from Guantanamo Bay and on shutting it down. Here are the news and the Concerned Citizens Media comment for March 31st, 2021. Mekele's mayor resigned. The Mekele Tigray Region's capital city mayor, Mr. Ataklt Haile Selassie, voluntarily resigned yesterday from the city administrative post given to him by Abiy Ahmed and by his Prosperity Party. As I reported in a previous video, Mr. Ataklt survived an assassination attempt just a day ago while he was having lunch in one of Mekele's hotels. Tigray People's Liberation Front and its supporters consider any appointees from Prosperity Party as bandits or servants of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. So they consider them as a legitimate target for assassination or other forms of attack. Concerned Citizens Media thinks that Mr. Haile Selassie made a smart move to salvage his life. So he was appointed to lead Mekele, the capital city of Tigray. So he survived one assassination. Now, according to various reports, he resigned from his post voluntarily. That's a smart move. And instead of staying in a danger zone, he decided to give it up, which is smart move. And the challenge for Prosperity Party and for Abiy Ahmed in that region is TPLF and relatives and sympathizers will not accept somebody coming from central government to govern the region. So they will be targeted, assassinated, or will be abducted. So that's a challenge for Abiy Ahmed. Egypt's very serious warning to Ethiopia. This is a very serious warning. Egypt President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi warned Tuesday that any attempt to take a drop of Egypt's water would have a destabilizing effect on the whole region. No one can take a single drop of water from Egypt, and whoever wants to try it, let him try, he said, Mr. Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. No one imagines that it will be far from our capabilities. I repeat, he said, I repeat that the waters of Egypt are untouchable, and touching them is a red line. Our battle is a battle of negotiation, the Egyptian leader said, adding that Cairo seeks a legally binding agreement based on international law and norms that govern cross-border rivers. So this is a very serious warning. Ethiopia repeatedly indicated that its filling of the Nile Dam is not stoppable. And she also rejected an Egyptian-backed Sudanese proposal to internationalize the dispute by including the United States, United Nations, and European Union as a mediator in talks that have been mediated by the African unions. So Sudan and Egypt, they want to expand, the mediators, bringing the United States, bringing the United Nations, bringing the European Union. Ethiopia so far refused about this expansion. Ethiopia want for now to stay with African Union, African mediators. But long a while ago, Prime Minister invited the United States in Sochi to negotiate the dam. But now they changed it. They don't want to expand. They want to stay with African Union. So this is a very serious issue. The hydro dam is expected to generate over 6,400 megawatts of electricity for Ethiopians and beyond when it is completed. So it's a huge source of energy for Ethiopia. Yes, Ethiopia has shortage of electricity. People, came from there. It's nothing changed. I went back after like almost 19 or 18 years. Nothing changed when it comes to water and electricity. It's every day, every other day, electric shutdown, the water shutdown. So Ethiopia still need resources. Still looks like a backward country. So we don't know how this project issue will be resolved. They are too far apart in coming to the negotiating table and agreeing on some common ground. No common ground. Sudan says something, Egypt says something, Ethiopia says something different. So they don't have common ground. So now Egypt and Sudan insist the United Nations, US, and European Union must be part of the negotiating table. Ethiopia say no, we deal with Africa. And Sudan say even the hydro dam belongs to me, according to 1902. So many complex issues, and Ethiopia also has its own internal problem created by Abiy Ahmed and Prosperity Party. So there's a lot going on, and we're gonna follow it and we'll report it. But it will not be an easy task. It will not be an easy project. The last one for today. Abiy Ahmed's interference in judiciary operation continues. Two Oromo Liberation Front officials were set free on the bail bonds yesterday by the court, then snatched back to jail by Abiy Ahmed's order and by his security operatives just at the door. After the court let them released on bail bond, the security with the order of Abiy Ahmed took them back. And such operation, such similar conduct is happened before. And Colonel Gamachu Ayana was released, and some journalists also released. Then with the order, with the interference of Abiy Ahmed and the security guards, they took them back, keep them in the jail. Such interference in the court's operation becoming common under Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's Ethiopia. For publicity purposes and for the global credit, the Prime Minister once said the judiciary is operating independently and without interference, he said publicly on the press briefing to the media. The judiciary operation is independent without the interference of the Prime Minister or other officials. But that is false. That is false. He is interfering deeply from behind and ordering the security forces and the police and undercover to snatch whoever released by the court and put them back in jail or some undisclosed location for a while. So justice is far-fetched. Justice is far-fetched for thousands and thousands of Oromos and others in Ethiopia. There is no justice. It's far-fetched. Justice cannot be achieved in such situation, and the court should be free. The court should be free to operate based on the constitution. But now, under Abiy Ahmed, everything is changed. Yes, the situation is worse. The other thing I want to mention is the Ethiopian soccer team, Walia, so successfully advanced to compete in a Africa Cup of Nations in Cameroon, I think next year. So the celebration is visible in Addis Ababa. So many residents and sport fans, the team Walia, are celebrating. It is a good achievement, a very good achievement for Ethiopia after 8 years to be qualified for African Cup of Nations. So some other teams also qualified, about 30 I think qualified to participate in this Cup of Nation, Cup of African Nation, which will be conducted in Cameroon. Senegal, Morocco, Egypt, Sudan, Malawi, and some others qualified to take part in this African Cup of Nations. So the celebration is huge in Addis Ababa, even though some infusion of some politics in it, using sport as as celebration is good, but they try to put also some politics, like advancing PP agendas and showing some brevity in if we did this, nothing cannot be achievable, something like that. And so let politics out from sport be sport. So some politicians are trying to infuse their opinion in it, their agenda in it. So it should be free from politics. So that's it, and I will share just one video about Guantanamo Bay. It was tough at the time. 3,000 people died in New York on September 11, 2001. The United States, it's a huge fire, declare war on Afghanistan, I think first, and that war extended for 20 years. For 20 years. And finally now they are negotiating with the Taliban. They couldn't win the war. The one, they removed the Taliban for that time from power, but the insurgency continued until today, almost 20 years. Now the Americans and the Taliban negotiating to settle, because they couldn't win the war. But that the war on terrorism impacted the lives of Muslims. Those are innocent. Those have nothing to do with it. Even, including Ethiopia, they used it. Just under TPLF, they used the terrorism law. So if you are opposing the government will take advantage of this new rule, the war on terrorism. They can just jail you indefinitely, torture you, and abuse human rights, and people scared of to visit you in jails, prisons, because that's a big name, terrorism. How are you gonna visit the terrorist? It was tough. So many impacted, so many died. And Musharraf, I remember, Musharraf make money, a lot of money, millions, by giving up a lot of Muslims to the American operations, including the innocents. He make money, but at the end, he was also in trouble. He was not successful. Many. So let's follow this video, as it's interesting to look back the history. Okay, hold on. There you go. Let me just a minute. Let me arrange it. Okay, give me a minute there. Okay, it's coming up just a little bit. Okay, here we go. Oh, there we go. Now it's good. Okay. There we go.
Okay, on this episode of The Stream, we delve into the ethics of holding people in prison for an indefinite length of time without trial or without charge. The United States right now, the Guantanamo Bay detention camp has detained 40 prisoners. That's 40 prisoners. Until 2016, Mohamedou Slahi was one of them. Right now, there's a brand new film out called The Mauritanian, and that is Mohamedou's story. Let's take a look.
People have called you a terrorist lawyer. How do you respond to that?
Well, when I defended someone charged with rape, nobody called me a rapist. When I defended someone charged with murder, nobody dug around my backyard. But when someone's accused of terrorism, people like you seem to think that's different.
You want to represent the head recruiter for 9/11.
Constitution doesn't have an asterisk at the end that says terms and conditions apply.
They kidnapped me from my home and brought me here with a bag on my head and chains around my body.
What do they accuse you of?
3 years, they charged me with nothing.
Rough justice. That's what this administration wants. We are seeking the death penalty.
What if you're wrong? What if you built this place? You abandon all of your principles, all of your laws, and you're wrong? You need to tell me what happened to you. I can't defend you.
My captors cannot forgive me for something that I've never done.
Maybe he's guilty.
Someone has to answer for the tower. Someone. Not just anyone.
In Arabic, the word for free and the word for forgiveness is the same word. I want to forgive. This is how, even here, I can be free.
Joining us on the stream, the real Mohamedou, the real Nancy, and hello, Daphne. It's so good to have you. Daphne, introduce yourself to our international audience. Tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Sure. My name is Daphne Evyatar. I direct the Security with Human Rights program at Amnesty International USA, and we advocate for the closure of the Guantanamo Bay detention camp, among other things.
Good to have you. Hello, Nancy. Welcome to the stream. Introduce yourself to our international audience.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm a criminal defense lawyer. I represented Mohamedou al-Salahi. I guess I still represent him forever. I have another client still in Guantanamo, and that's what I do. I represent people and institutions accused of breaking the law.
Thank you for joining us, Nancy. And Mohamedou, there will be people who will be discovering who you are today. What do they need to know about you? Welcome to the stream.
My name is Mohamedou al-Salahi, a former political prisoner in Guantanamo Bay and other places. Today, I am a human being and a human rights activist.
I'm just thinking, often when you go to the movies, it says based on a true story, but this is your story. If you could sum it up, what is it that people will be going to see, clicking on, renting? What is it? What is that story in a nutshell?
First off, I would like to thank you so much for inviting me in your program, and I am a very big fan. This is surreal that I have been watching your program for so many years, and now I am on your program. This is like so big for me. And so what the people need to know is that the rule of law and the respect of human rights do work. Dictatorships and authoritarian regimes do not work. We know this. Because this obsession of some American like officials in these intelligence agencies and in the government that you know working without the gloves on, getting down and dirty, taking down people without trial. This does not work because we can see it. Authoritarian regimes are kaput. Countries who don't have any rules are like failing or failed countries. Only democracy and respect of human rights do work. That's what I want people to know. And I also want people to know that we need to stop this exception in the Middle East and in Africa that people don't deserve to be treated with dignity and the rule of law. We want the same thing as you have in the United States of America, they have in Canada, they have in Western Europe. We want human rights, dignity, and not being kidnapped and tortured outside the law.
So if you want to speak to Mohamedou or Nancy or Daphne, you know you can do that right now. You can jump into the YouTube comments and be part of today's program. We also have guests, some video comments for you. So Mohamedou and Nancy, pay special attention. This is Sarah. She has a question for both of you. Let's have a listen.
I've watched the movie and I'm currently reading the book, both exceptional pieces of work. My question for you, Nancy, is this, is that as a lawyer, how did you personally cope with the frustrations and the disappointments you must have faced throughout this long battle for Mohamedou's freedom? Mohamedou, for you, I want to know, what was it about Nancy and her team of lawyers that made you trust them, that made you want to give them all the information they needed, made you want to follow due process and eventually win your battle for freedom?
Nancy, you go first. The frustration.
Shoot. It is frustrating, and it was frustrating in this case and in other cases. I think I deal with it just by dealing with it, by going forward, by writing another motion, by talking to the client. In this case, Mohamedou, we had years before the judge granted his habeas, and then we had 6 years after that, when really nothing was happening. But somehow, just being with Mohamedou, talking to him, promising him that I would never leave him, and Terry Duncan, my co-counsel, said the same thing. We will always be here as long as you're here. But yes, I cried every time I left him, every single time.
Mohamedou, why would you trust Nancy?
So, actually, when Nancy came to me, it was like almost after 4 years of my detention. And I would like to advise everyone, to make sure they get a lawyer before 4 years in custody. So I did not have much of a choice. And so it's like, okay, like, Germans speak about die Qual der Wahl, meaning the torture of too many choices. I didn't have any choices. When Nancy came to me, she was the first American civilian I ever saw, like I ever interacted with, after so many years. And I was so happy. I saw in her the savior, and I wasn't disappointed, I just kept working with her. And I mean, without Nancy, I wouldn't be talking to you. And Femi, I'm so disappointed.
Right.
So many people are calling me after the movie, and they say, Mohamedou, this is so great. I love Nancy. I want to be a lawyer. I'm like, okay. But not one single person called me say, Mohamedou, I want to be kidnapped, tortured by the United States of America. So Nancy, I'm doing your work for you.
But
Thank you, Mohamedou.
But I do feel that both the way that you are both portrayed in the film draws you in. It helps you understand and unpack the issues, which is where I'm going to bring Daphne in here. Daphne, there is an Amnesty International campaign right now to close Guantanamo Bay, and you are and your colleagues are putting all of your efforts behind that. I'm going to play one clip of the campaign and how the campaign is doing, and I want you to come off the back of it and explain what some of the critical issues are and why Gitmo is still open. Let's have a look at the campaign first of all.
I trust you, you trust me. I am innocent. I am innocent.
We are part of the new film, The Mauritanian. The movie is about Mohamedou Slahi, who was tortured and imprisoned for years and never charged with a crime.
He and almost 800 other men have passed through the terrifying doors of the detention center at Guantanamo Bay.
Guantanamo is a symbol of torture, indefinite detention, and injustice.
Join us to tell President Biden.
Close Guantanamo once and for all.
And end indefinite detention.
I'm just looking here at the report that Amnesty International put out about closed Guantanamo Bay detention camp. Daphne, these are people's lives who were scooped up, and often they had no charges, they were tortured, people died, and this is happening under the jurisdiction of the United States of America. Where are we right now?
So, first I just want to say how important this movie is and how grateful I am to Mohamedou and Nancy and all of the people who made the movie and just participated in that video as well, because, it's like Nancy said, she can do her legal work, and Mohamedou had the unfortunate role of being in prison and being able to write about it. And Amnesty comes in and we campaign for the closure of the detention camp, but everybody's role is so important in reminding people that this is what the United States did. And I think I'm so glad the movie is out now, because so many people in this country have forgotten that the Guantanamo detention camp still exists, that the United States is still imprisoning 40 Muslim men, most of whom have never been charged with a crime, in an offshore prison camp in Cuba that was created specifically to avoid the reach of U.S. law. I believe if Americans realized that, they would demand an end to it. And so we're really urging people to see the film, trying to get our report out. Our report goes into a lot of detail. It's a long report. I don't think every average person will read it, but anyone who wants background on Guantanamo should look at it. I think it's an issue that people really need to pay more attention to in this country, because the 9/11 attacks were almost 20 years ago. People have kind of forgotten about them, but they don't realize that we created a whole system of law enforcement and military policies since 9/11 that specifically targets Muslims in other countries. It is a discriminatory policy, and it needs to end. And it is continuing to hold people without
Can I
charge
add
or trial.
something?
Go ahead, Nancy.
Yes, I think, thank you, Daphne, and thank you for all the wonderful work that Amnesty is doing. I just want to make clear that we're talking about human beings, as Daphne said. 6 of these men have been cleared for release already. One of them, since 2009. The Biden administration can get those people home or where they're safe quickly. And for the 25 or so who've never been charged with any crime, we don't have indefinite detention in this country. They too have to be released. And that leaves only about 7 who've been actually charged in the military commissions, and their cases need to get resolved in a process that they can agree to, that the government can agree to, and we need to put a lock on the door and say never again to anything like Guantanamo.
Mohamedou, when you follow your story, I followed it in real life, and then I watched the film, and it drew me right back into your life again. There is a joyfulness alongside the pain, which is very difficult to understand. John here on YouTube asked this about you. How did you maintain a positive outlook? You're even cracking jokes right now when we're talking about one of the most serious issues right now in terms of injustice and people being kept in prison when there is no charge. There is no reason for them to be kept in prison. Mohamedou? How do you do it?
Femi, we are what we went through. So many people ask me why you forgive, you know. And you know, when the CIA plane came to pick me up from Jordanian prison, where I suffered for 8 consecutive months, you know, in a dungeon. I didn't know, like, days, nights for the most time. When they picked me up and when they used scissors, you know, to strip me naked and put me in a diaper, you know, I figured, you know, at that time, I'm not going back home. This is it. This is the end. I'm gonna die, you know, forgotten in a very violent American prison, you know, because who I am, a young Muslim Arab from a region that is still the exception to human rights and dignity. And, you know, my life ran through my head in a split of second. I tell you what I didn't regret in life. I did not regret not being rich, not having that dream job, not marrying that hot woman. I did not regret any of that. I did, however, regret all the less than nice words I told people, not being as nice as I wanted to be. And then I took it upon myself to be as nice as possible to people because that's what would matter. And today I am telling you I forgive everyone, people who kidnapped me, people who tortured me, and I wish them nothing but the best in life. And I'm in peace with myself and in peace with the world.
Mohamedou, you may be at peace with yourself, but I'm wondering about the struggles that the politicians in the United States should be having and where the accountability is. We had this comment. I'm going to share it with you, Daphne and Nancy, so I'll share it between you about what have we learned from the so-called war on terror. Have a look, have a listen.
Watching the Mauritanian really brought home the abject failures of the war on terror and the extent governments will go to cover up on how they treat prisoners. The facilities of Guantanamo Bay detention center have become emblematic of the gross human rights abuses perpetrated by the US government in the name of terrorism and has become a symbol of torture, rendition and indefinite detention without charge or trial. We must learn from our failures and hold not just our enemies but also our allies to the same fundamental principle and universal values we fight to protect. Most importantly, we must remember, under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, everyone is presumed innocent until proven guilty and everyone is entitled to legal counsel.
But that isn't true when it comes to Guantanamo Bay detention camp. Daphne, lessons learned.
I think the biggest lesson is that we can't have a war on terror. This isn't a military fight. You can't decide that you're going to use the military and the CIA and special interrogation and torture against a group of people who you suspect might have links to armed groups who might want to harm us. That's not what we do in this country. That's not what our justice system demands. But that's what Guantanamo did. It created this special military place outside the justice system. I think we've learned that that has failed. It's failed as a matter of detention. It's never brought justice to the victims of the 9/11 attack. There's never been a trial of the men accused of being involved in that horrible incident. Mass murder. There's never been a trial, and it's really, I think we've learned that there is a different way. You know, we've been fighting a war. We've also killed hundreds of thousands of civilians around the world in trying to fight terrorism through a war, and we've realized that doesn't end terrorism. Terrorism isn't solved. It's not over. It's not like no one's being attacked anymore. It didn't work. We need a new way of going about this. This is not
Can I jump
war.
a little bit?
Yeah, of course, Mohamedou, go ahead. Yeah, please.
So I'm going to be very straight in this. I'm not going to beat around the bush. Terrorism as a crime should be, we should get eliminated. Terrorism should not be designated as a crime because of two things. One, countries are not unanimous of the definition. Every country has its own terrorism. Mostly political dissent, peaceful political dissent, are terrorists in many countries. And the biggest gift to dictatorial regimes and authoritarian regimes in the world was the 9/11 attack, because
but
the United States of
Mohamedou, were the 9/11 attacks? That has to be terrorism, doesn't it?
No.
Okay.
We have murder, we have
Right.
destruction of property, because the abuses, when you use terrorism, you can like collectively punish people, and this is
So
very
you
problematic,
punish the end
especially in
result. You don't label it as terrorism. Is your point that you're making, Nancy?
what I'm making.
Yes,
what I'm
I
making
agree with.
here.
Yeah, sorry, Mohamedou.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, what I'm making is the following point. Terrorism as a crime is abused in Africa and in the Middle East mostly, because they use it to crush political dissent. And they say we can hold people without trial because America, the greatest democracy in the world, does it.
Yeah.
Where are the limits? And every country has its own like so-called terrorists, and this is just like a way to collectively punish people outside the rule of law, put them in a prison outside the rule of law, because if you say terrorism, people are scared, and people have the right to be scared.
Let me just add a little bit to that. I totally agree with Mohamedou, and I've given hour-long lectures on why we should not have the crime of terrorism. Terrorism is 100% always a political crime. There's no, as Mohamedou says, there's no need for it. We have murder, rape, ethnic cleansing, whatever you want. But when you charge someone with murder, everyone looks at that accused. That person is being charged with murder. When you charge someone with terrorism, people look collectively at who is that person and where does that person come from and what is the family and what is the ethnicity. We do not need this crime ever. The 9/11 people can be charged with murder. They can be, that's really all they need to be charged with, the murder of 3,000 people. It's going to get us to the same place. But in federal court in the United States, if you add terrorism, it's a way to just make the sentence longer.
All right. I'm going to play one.
If I could just jump in.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry,
Daphne, go
just
ahead.
wanted to make this point because it's very important, actually, the Amnesty International. We never use the word terrorism for exactly the reasons that Mohamedou
Because it's a political word.
It's a political word. It's always defined politically.
I'm just going to give the last word to YouTube, or the last question to YouTube. This is from Guinevere Page. Do you think that closure of Guantanamo Bay detention camp, is that enough? Just to have it closed, is that enough? I'm just going to ask you very quickly because we're shockingly at the end of the show. Mohamedou, is that enough?
It's necessary, but it's not enough, because the United States of America is the most powerful country in the world, and it's a democracy, and they should lead in defending human rights everywhere and close all the secret Guantanamos, plural, all around the world.
That's the one we know about. All right, Nancy, go ahead.
It's a start, but it's not enough. We have to end indefinite detention. We can't simply close Guantanamo and move these human beings to somewhere else where they're going to be detained indefinitely. So both of them have to happen. We have to have due process and the rule of law.
Daphne, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with both of those. And finally, there also needs to be accountability. There needs to be accountability for what happened to Mohamedou and to hundreds of other men like him who were unjustly imprisoned. There needs to, as Nancy said, there needs to be the rule of law and justice. We cannot move forward until we need to move forward. We need to close Guantanamo immediately. We need to end indefinite detention. We also need to look at what happened, why it happened, and hold people accountable who made it happen and who gave license to that. It was an atrocity that needs to be dealt with.
I want to leave you with one more voice of a viewer who saw the film and the film inspired her. Have a listen, have a look.
I think what stands out to me from watching the movie is just the fact that, it's really hard to even wrap your mind around the fact that such a place exists in the world and in the most civilized nation. in 2021. And Mohamedou's story can leave you very angry, can leave you very inspired, as well as the fact that, his whole takeaway from this whole experience is forgiveness. And the thing that really stands out to me in the whole movie is that saying that in Arabic, the word free and forgiveness are one and the same thing.
The Mauritanian is currently out in movie theatres right now. Thank you to Mohamedou, to Nancy, to Daphne for being on the stream today. Thank you, YouTubers, for your comments as well. I'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.
Okay, thank you, Al Jazeera, for this report. And it's a very, very tough account. It's a movie is out about Guantanamo Bay and the war on terrorism. If you are interested, you can watch the movie. But the lawyer, the Amnesty International, and Amadou, who is a victim of the war on terrorism, luckily he survived the hardship, and now he's sharing his experience. So it's a tough, very tough. As I said, many innocent civilians died in the war the war on terrorism. Many injured. Innocent, nothing to do with 9/11. The one have identified, most of them from Saudi Arabia, but Saudi Arabia, because of the relationship with the United States, didn't suffer that much. Who suffer? People from Pakistan, people from Afghanistan, people Middle East mostly, Africa too, Muslim countries. Just being Muslim makes you the target at the time. Irrational thinking was not available at the time. America is attacked. America should have, should or must respond, but responded in a different way. So justice, as they said, justice is not served for those died in 9/11. People suffered. Mohamedou has nothing to do with 9/11. Nothing. He suffered in Jordan, and he suffered in Guantanamo Bay for nothing. Life destroyed. And even Ethiopia used, as I said, to crush some Muslim opponents by using the war on terrorism, by adjusting in its constitution. It was easy. As long as you support the United States, nobody cares. Nobody challenged that country to respect the human dignity. And if you are accused by terrorism, and nobody want to accept you, nobody, no country. Some of the detainees were released, but countries, their own original countries, refused to accept them. People scared. It was a tough situation. I hope it's going to be closed. The campaign to close the Guantanamo Bay is on the way. I hope Obama tried, but the Republican fought back. I don't know what is going to happen in the Biden administration. Hopefully it will be closed. It's a terrible place, and no justice. People just kept there without taking them to justice. Just keep them there because war and terrorism, they can detain you indefinitely. So that was The video I want to share with you, listen to it. It's interesting to look back and learn about maybe in the future. How can we deal if something dangerous like this happen rationally without breaking laws? So that's it. And the warning of Egypt is very serious. Egypt says nobody touch the water unless legally binding document is signed between Ethiopia, Sudan, and Egypt, and we will see how the situation going on in that area, and the intervention of Abiy Ahmed and security guard or undercovers in the judiciary system is horrible. Justice must be respected. Abiy should leave the court alone. He is doing it with Johar Mohammed, Bakala Garba, Hamza Borona. He just keep them there, accusing them with some ridiculous cases, killing the popes of church. These are all fake, all fake. He just want to use the power, the country's resources, to keep the Oromos under control, to silence them, so that they cannot challenge his policy of resurrection of the Minilik and other rulers' styles. He will not be successful. He will try. He can kill. He can arrest as many as he wants. But in a long term, he will not be successful. He knows that. But he is trying. He is silencing more than 60 million Oromos by shutting them out from the upcoming election, by keeping all politicians, Oromo politicians, out of the game, by arresting thousands and thousands. So temporarily he is successful. He shut down no demonstration. No demonstration is allowed. He used a shoot to kill policy. For now is using it. Now I heard that there's a division between Muslim councils, just like TPLF time. Abiy is supporting one group against another group. The problem is coming like TPLF time. So the situation is tough, and he is pushing for election, and election will not solve the problem. As I said before, cannot solve that country's problem. The solution is in dialogue, negotiation, and a give and a take condition. So it's very tough situation anyway. That's all I have to share with you for today. I will be back with other news and comments, and be safe, share it, like it, comment on it, so that we can grow together. Thank you everyone. See you next time.